Hi everyone, my name is Esther Lee. For those of you who do not know me, I am the Director of Program Development for Digital Media. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to discuss universal design for learning with all of you. With my focused background in special education and educational technology, I am very passionate about UDL. So I wanted to put together this presentation for those of you who may not know about the principles of UDL. Share my presentation with you. So to me, UDL is a fundamental framework to keep in mind when developing anything for students. For the purpose of this session, I will go over a very high-level overview of what UDL is, why it matters to Kaplan, and how we can begin applying its principles. So what is UDL? Well, in order to fully understand and appreciate UDL, I need to give you a brief history of how it came about. So UDL traces its origin to the universal design movement of the 1990s. The term universal design, also known as UD, was coined by an architect and designer, Ron Mace. Mace and his colleagues defined UD as the design of products and environments to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. And in the 1990s, this movement began to change the architectural design of buildings. Ramps being one of the most obvious additions, and you can see in this image here. Ramps were originally added to buildings for people in wheelchairs to have easier access, but architects began to realize that ramps also had other benefits, such as providing efficiency when moving large items in and out of buildings, helping people with temporary disabilities like a broken leg, or providing safety for little kids, or even having baby carriages around. So how is UDL connected to UD? Well, if the goal of UD was to remove barriers from the physical environment, the goal of UDL is to eliminate barriers from the learning environment. These barriers vary from person to person and can include communication barriers, mobility barriers, and environmental barriers. So both UD and UDL focus on the notion that we should make adjustments as problems arise so we can anticipate these problems and incorporate modifications from the onset. Dr. David Rose, my former professor and also the co-founder of Center for Applied Special Technology, coined the term UDL and has stated, UDL puts the tag disabled where it belongs, on the curriculum and not on the learner. The curriculum is considered disabled when it does not meet the needs of diverse learners. So UDL provides an overarching framework for thinking about the design of curricular materials. For us, that would mean goals, assessments, materials, and methods, and our platform. And thinking about it from the broadest range of students from the beginning. It is a conceptual shift from thinking about fixing the student to fixing the curricula. UDL guidelines provide suggestions based on research in the learning sciences and emphasizes proactive design of the environment and curricula. There are 3 principles of UDL. It is all about providing options. As you can see, the 3 principles are providing multiple means of engagement, providing multiple means of expression and action, and providing multiple means of representation. David Gordon, one of the directors at CAST, stated that options are essential to learning because no single way of presenting information and no single way of responding to information and no single way of engaging students will work across the diversity of students. Alternatives reduce barriers to learning for students with disabilities while enhancing learning opportunities for everyone. So instead of boring you with what the 3 principles really mean, I wanted to take a look at the 3 principles using a single example. GPS is the perfect example of current technology that encompasses all 3 principles of engagement, expression, and representation. So how does a GPS provide multiple means of engagement? Well, first and foremost, it allows you to choose your own destination. You get to set your own goal. You also get to choose your own journey, whether you want lots of rest stops or want a calming scenic route. You can do so by a touch of a screen. You can also set your own timeline and tell it when you need to leave your current location by, or when you would like to arrive at your destination by. And the perhaps best thing for some of us who may be bad at merely following directions is that even when you make wrong turns or take unplanned stops, the GPS reroutes itself to meet your needs and guide you to your destination without much hassle at all. Continue with the GPS example for the other two principles of UDL. So hopefully the way I'm explaining and speaking about it is helping you connect the dots to our Kaplan product and our students. The second UDL principle is providing multiple means of expression and action. A GPS does this by allowing you to choose the language of your choice. If you hate high-pitched voices, you can change the tone of the speaker. And if you prefer your native language like I do, your whole journey can be in a different language. If you don't want anyone to speak to you at all, so you can listen to your music, you can turn off the audio and simply look at symbols. A GPS uses universal symbols like arrows so that it's easy for you to follow even without a voice constantly telling you what turn to take next. I'm sure you can come up with many other ways that a GPS provides multiple means of expression. The third and final UDL principle is providing multiple means of representation. A GPS allows you to choose how you want to view things. So you can have a first-person driver view or a bird-eye view of the map. You can even use a 3D view where buildings have shape. You can also take a look at your entire journey from beginning to end so you can get a sense of direction and time. But if that overwhelms you, you can look at the step-by-step version of your journey that gives you bite-sized chunks of information. You can also choose to have a progress bar that tells you how much of the trip you have completed, or see how much time or how many miles are left in your journey. Sometimes the steps you have already taken get grayed out or simply disappear so that you don't get confused. So why do we care about providing multiple means of engagement, expression, and representation to our consumers at Kaplan? Well, the answer is simple. It's about the bell curve. We often talk about the quote-unquote average student and consumer norms, but this can often about the marginalized populations at both ends of the bell curve. When we narrow the gaps in our thinking, we are bound to better include all population and in turn have a more universal product. Apart from the GPS, a lot of technology today are great examples of universal design that was designed with the marginalized populations in mind, but had much larger benefits and convenience to all people as a whole. Some examples that you may be familiar with include devices like Alexa that function multiple devices using just voice dictation. Another example is an adaptive e-reader that was designed to help people with visual impairment but allows us without visual impairment to continue reading even in bright or very dark settings. Closed captioning that helps people with hearing impairment also helps people who are learning new languages or when we are watching a show in a loud setting. And something interesting about closed captioning is that MIT actually did some research recently and found that a vast 97% of their students stated that searchable transcripts in their online courseware enhanced their learning experience, even though these were built for people with hearing impairments and students had not originally asked for such features. These surprise elements of good design are what could ultimately benefit our students in the learning journey at Kaplan. Judy Heumann, the International Disability Rights Advisor at the US Department of State, has been quoted saying, "For people without disabilities, technology makes things convenient, whereas for people with disabilities, it makes things possible." As a company, many of you know, Kaplan embraces Carol Dweck's notion of growth mindset. It's the notion that time and effort will result in greater success. We need to be fully aware that this is true for everyone, including those who are marginalized. And we also need to understand that the marginalized aren't necessarily a special case. If we take a look at the UN's official definition of people with disabilities, it states that a disability includes those a person with disability includes those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments in interaction with various attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. This pretty much describes everyone. As an educational company, it is our responsibility to remove much of these attitudinal and environmental barriers for our students as much as possible. So how do we do that? Well, hopefully, as I walked you through the 3 principles of UDL using the GPS example, you were able to relate my explanation to our current platform. For example, ask yourself, does our platform currently allow students to individually set their own goals? Are students innately motivated by the journey that they chose on their own? Do we provide our students with multiple ways of expressing their wants, their needs, and their growth? Do we represent the students' success, failures, and their journey in different ways? When students take wrong turns, do we make sure that students are back on the right track without much hassle? How are we addressing the issue of chunking? How are we maintaining engagement with the unmotivated students? How are we providing an extra something for students who are bored and overachieving? Are we putting all our students into one category, or do we think about every individual and every possible barrier that may hinder them from learning or using our products to the fullest potential? Let's not talk about just the average consumer in the middle of the bell curve. Let's begin talking about the marginalized population so that we can narrow the gaps. Let's not make any assumptions about our consumers and do more research and ask more questions to learn more about the students whose needs we have not been meeting. And innovation can be created to make things accessible to those who are thought to be marginalized, but truly universal design will allow innovation to be applied to all. I hope that you were inspired by the principles of UDL. I look forward to continuing this conversation with you all. My email is Esther@Kaplan, and please feel free to send me any questions or comments that you may have. For those of you who are super curious and want to learn more, here are links to some of the resources, and I really appreciate your time. It was a pleasure, and I hope to hear back from many of you. Thank you.